Welcome to the Biz Selling Lab. We are talking about different types of business owners who may eventually sell and why understanding their mindset might change the entire conversation. So, Delia, you're going to walk us through some of these different types of sellers and figure out what we need to be doing to figure out if this is a deal going forward or not. Can you share what some of those different types of sellers are?
Yes, when it comes to business sellers, I've talked to dozens or hundreds of them over the course of the last few months. And I was trying to place each of these conversations into a bucket to be able to offer better advice or, make better decisions on both sides.
Yeah, for
As
sure.
business owners are interested potentially in selling, that's why we had the conversation. I connect sellers to buyers. So then when I talk to them, I notice that some of them are what we call distress sellers. Something happened in their lives, whether a health crisis hit them, a personal health crisis, or a family member being in the hospital or on hospice. A key person leaves, a contract falls through, a market shifts significantly. This type of distressed seller is under the urgency of selling. They usually don't know what else to do to keep the business afloat. And when that happens, the value of the business goes down tremendously. That's why it's very important to have an exit plan, to be ready to exit at any point. But most business owners don't really think about exiting. So it's important to slow down just enough to understand where you're at as a seller. So first, distressed seller. A second, very different type of seller is a motivated seller. This is someone who's ready to sell now or within 12 months. Now, ready to sell now doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to get the best price for their business. They're often ready to sell now because they've had conversations with their kids about taking over and the kids don't really want to take over, or they're burnt out. I was talking to someone the other week. He had to deal with a family member who was going through some very difficult situation, and he was never able to get back that motivation to go back to growing the business. So the business has been plateauing, and he feels pretty motivated to sell. He's ready just to hand the keys to someone else. Now, this type of business is not going to get the best price, but he knows that if he holds onto the business, the value is going to go down. So he's pretty motivated at making a decision. So the distressed seller versus the motivated seller, those are very different types of sellers. Now, the distress could be sometimes, right, falls under the motivated seller at times. We want to make a distinction between the motivated seller whose business is still doing well, who is not impacted by the external events or personal events that are bringing the value down. A third type of seller is a reluctant holder. I can think of a business owner who came to me who was thinking about selling. And this type of seller should probably sell, but keeps waiting for the right moment. It should have been a clue to me when he said that 3 years ago he went to a broker. The business broker gave him a range of the price that he might get for his business. He decided not to sell it at that point. He came to me and he suggested, he talked as if he wanted to sell the business. But when, after talking a lot, a few times we met, I created an offer to give him the most amount of money I could because he would have financed most of the deal. He actually pulled back. He realized, oh, I don't really want to sell just yet. So he was not motivated. He was pretty reluctant at selling. So you have to see what type of language the seller uses. And if you are the seller and you are a reluctant holder, you have to ask yourself some questions because if you're plateauing and you're not taking any steps, you do not know how to go from 2 million to 5 or 2 million to 4. If you are just hoping that something will improve, that's not a good strategy to build your business. There might be wisdom in you pulling back selling and just letting someone else take over. But you have to commit to a timeline and give yourself, right, a timeline to figure out, can I improve things? Yes or no? The other type of seller I have dealt with is the hub owner, where the owner is like the hub of the business. Everything kind of goes through them. That business is a little bit dangerous because if the owner leaves, the business is not really running well. A business usually has systems and people in place, right? That's what it makes a business and not a sole proprietorship. But sometimes hub owners who are at the center of the business and they feel pretty, at one point they were indispensable. If they don't make themselves dispensable, if they don't remove themselves from the center, the value of the business stays in the lower multiples. So it's important for the hub owner to start thinking about turning the business around and making sure the business doesn't run on them personally. Now, if you have to hire someone to do some of the things you're doing, that means you're making less money because you have to pay someone. So that is certainly something to consider. But if you want to sell, if you're ready, getting closer to selling, it's a wise decision to make. That's why it's important to place yourself on in the right bucket and discover what is the next step. What do you have to do? The last type of seller is the strategic seller. This is someone who is very intentional about increasing the value of the business. They are structuring the business well. They are building the right systems. They understand what a buyer looks for. They understand what increases the value. They want to go from a 5 multiple to a 10 multiple by implementing the right things into the business. That's the strategic seller. And you usually need about 3 years, if not more, to increase the multiple and the value of the business. So if you are interested in selling the business, you want to maximize the value of the business, that's what you should be doing. I was actually talking, I was part of a conversation with a seller who was doing 30 million a year, 30 or 40 million, and he wanted to get to 300 million a year. So that is a strategic type of seller who is only looking to partner or talk to people who can take him from 30 to 300 million. And this guy was willing to put in the work. He really saw his identity tied to the business, and he didn't want to sell at the moment, even though he would have gotten quite a big amount of money for the business. So it's important as a seller to ask yourself, where am I in on this map of seller buckets? Which bucket do I fit in? And as a buyer, you have to understand who the seller is and make sure you find the right buyer. Make sure as a seller you find the right buyer. As a buyer, make sure you find the right seller. And that's going to make the relationship work much better.
Yeah, thanks so much for walking us through that. That is just really going to help us figure out what type of buyer or seller we are and what that looks like because we want to protect the value that we've built. So if you want to continue in the conversation, you can join us over in the Biz Selling Lab community. We'd love to see you there. The link is in the description.